Welcome to Why Such a Fuss, an exciting new channel dedicated to help individuals and businesses to learn more about data protection in a way that is easy and engaging. I'm Christina from CVG Solutions, and I am a fully qualified data protection professional. I am passionate about educating, empowering, and enabling businesses to thrive. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel and help us to spread the word. Data protection is there for a reason. It protects you, your family, loved ones, customers, employees from coming to harm through the use of personal data. So make sure you click subscribe. Now, get ready to embark on a journey of growth and knowledge as we dive into the world of data protection. Rowenna Fielding, data protection, data ethics, and digital privacy nerd, is joining us again today. Hi, Rowena, and welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Excellent. So, Rowena, both you and I are data protection professionals, and we have in-depth knowledge and understanding of the regulation. Otherwise, we couldn't do what we do. Sometimes, though, it goes beyond the legislation itself. It's also about treating people and their data with integrity and respect. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say that that's not beyond the legislation, that is the very point of the legislation. So in the very opening paragraphs of the GDPR, it says the processing of personal data should be for the benefit of it says mankind, but I'm not down with the gendered language, humankind. That sets out right from the start that you should only be processing personal data if human beings are going to benefit. Now, obviously, there's a whole load of room for discussion about who benefits and how and why and whether some people should benefit more than others. But the fundamental intent of data protection law is to protect people from each other when they are represented in data. So the origin of data protection law came after the Second World War. In fact, the Third Reich was the very first organization ever to use industrialized data processing on human beings. And obviously their purposes in doing so were not good for those human beings that it was pointed at. And every principle and every right and every obligation in data protection law can be traced directly back to ways in which the Nazis weaponized data and data processing systems against the people they didn't like. So the idea is we don't do that again.
Yes. Yeah. Very
so that's why it's because the origin of data protection law is human rights law, and the origin of human rights law is generally to try and stop people as much as possible being really awful to each other. Data protection is important because it is a way of avoiding, either intentionally or accidentally, being really awful to people.
Yes, yeah, and cause damage and harm to people. I always like to look at things, from a business perspective as well, and I believe that by treating data and the people that data sort of is relevant to with integrity and respect, regardless of the law in itself, but it's another way for the business, from a business perspective, to build trust with your clients, with your customers. And so one of the key principles of the regulation is actually transparency. And again, that it's about being respectful to the people, to the customer that you are servicing, whether through a product or through a service. And so that helps to formalize and to strengthen that trust. Trust is built on transparency and respect. And to me, that also becomes part of as a business person, my unique selling point, my USP. And I think there are a lot of organizations that don't necessarily understand that, and therefore understand that actually, yes, obviously the data protection was created, as you said, to protect people from coming to harms, but there is also a business benefit behind it that we should be proud of that, and we should be. So that's the incentive in my mind, from a business perspective, to be compliant. You know what I mean, and to embrace this rather than resist it.
In a perfect world, people would vote and spend and align themselves according to their values wherever possible. In this world, it doesn't always happen like that. And so a lot of the time I find when making a business-based argument for compliance, is that the fundamental fact that it is faster, cheaper, and easier to ignore the law than it is to follow it. However, business reputation definitely counts. You know, potential for enforcement activity counts. The prospect of litigation or insurance claims for having ignored the law, those count from a business perspective. So I think there is a solid business argument for following data protection law with sincerity. It's not the whole argument.
No.
Because there are plenty of businesses who, if say child slavery were made legal tomorrow, would go rushing out to take competitive advantage of that, even though it's wrong. So I think the distinction between what the law says, what organizational and individual humans' values are, and what the risk is, I think it's really important to distinguish between those three and consider all three of them. Quite a lot of the time, the values stuff, I'll call it ethics, gets left out because it's really hard to quantify business benefit of being ethical. And kind of the point is that, well, it doesn't necessarily add up to profits that you can count. From a social point of view, we have lines and boundaries of acceptable behavior, because if we didn't, then the world would not be a very nice place to live in, as it isn't in many places. So yeah, the business benefits are enormous, not just from building trust, but being trustworthy.
Yes.
So transparency, to give the illusion of being trustworthy, is not the point. Transparency about who you are, what you do, and why you do it, without having to fudge the truth or cut corners or leave bits out because people will go at them, should be the goal.
Yes, totally agree. Rowena, once again, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. So thank you again for joining us. How can our audience get in touch with you?
So the best way to get in touch with me is probably via Twitter, which I will always continue to call Twitter. And I am Miss IG Geek. That's at Miss IG_geek. And you'll usually find me on there giving opinions. I'm also on LinkedIn as Rowenna Fielding, 2 N's, or as Miss IG Geek. I have a website which has a contact form. It's missinfogeek.net. And if you're interested in my articles or tools to help you work through the ins and outs of data protection, I have a site at buymeacoffee.com, again under the name Miss IG Geek.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rowena. And if you would like to get in touch with me, I can be found on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for CVG Solutions. Alternatively, you can reach out via email at info@cvgsolutions.co.uk.